All right, folks, how's it going? What have we got this week for you then? Well, we've got an underperformance by me. My portfolio made 1.12%, and the Life Strategy 3 funds all did significantly better. 1.171, 2.12, 2.53 respectively. Well, not respectively, in reverse order. So, the obvious things are the US smaller companies all seem to like Trump getting into power in January. But then I've had equally bad results, bad performance from Gore Street Energy. There was no news about that one, so I'm not exactly sure what that's all about. But yeah, that's not doing well for me. 18% down. Question is, do I add more to it? Do I get greedy, or do I just sit with that and let it happen? I'm not quite sure why Barclays would have liked the election result, but yeah, the day or two after it, it seemed to go up quite a bit more than NatWest for some reason. I know NatWest is more UK focused, so I'm not exactly sure how much US stuff is affecting Barclays. And if we go to the Fundsmith portfolio, I think there was a big move for, yes, there was for Fortinet, 10% on its results. It's worked its way right up to like 13th in the Fundsmithish portfolio. I haven't actually done this yet. Let me have a look. 8th of November, 24. Let's see how they've gone week on week. So Fortinet must have done well before its results as well, because it's 17% up on the week. Anything else to note? Marriott's done well. Texas Instruments, a lot of that was on Trump, so I don't know if it's something to do with tariffs maybe. Texas Instruments, and you know what, I'm not exactly sure what they do, but what I'm thinking is they might compete with Chinese producers of these instruments. I think it might be something similar to microchips. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. Costco's done well as well. Texas Roadhouse. Yeah, but I don't need to understand these things because these aren't my picks. I'm not declaring myself the fund manager here. I'm just going based on what's written here. It's basically me copying other people, mostly Fundsmith. That's why it's called Fundsmith-ish, just in case there's any newcomers who are here. And then Joseph Carson's a YouTuber who says he likes what Fundsmith does, so they're kind of aligned. Yeah, so if at some point I decided to buy something like Tesla, that wouldn't go into this portfolio because that's a completely different philosophy. That's more of a Scottish mortgage, taking a bet on something new. Fundsmith and Joseph Carlson, they're kind of like buy the winners and let them just continue plodding along. Well, a bit more than plodding, hopefully, but yeah. Anyway, that's just for any newcomers who don't actually know what this little subsection of my portfolio is about. And then the dividends are still low at the moment. Mind you, they were bumped up a bit last week, weren't they? So we had a dividend announcement from Scottish American. Each new Scottish American dividend actually is normally a change because they do it different to most of my other trusts. Instead of having a level and then keeping it the same and then increasing it, what they do is they don't guarantee, but they try and make it so that year to year it's an increase. But it doesn't necessarily have to stay as high as the last one because you can see there the last one of last year was 3.8 and then it went down to 3.45. But they don't care about that. What they do is they make sure that to that is an increase, and that to that's an increase, that to that. So each one is a new level. So it always adds a tiny bit of income to my portfolio. And as you can see, it's gone from 3.7 to 3.55, which is a 4.2% increase for that one. And I'm going to skip ahead to NESF's dividend declaration as well. So the NextEnergy Solar Fund, they increased their dividend to 2.11p, so a bit of a token gesture increase really. So if we assume all three are going to be at 2.11 for the rest of this year, and then add it to the one we've had already, so the yearly increase is going to be just less than 1%. But you can't expect a 10% yielder, I think. 11% yielder. But yeah, it's now. I wouldn't have even expected it to go up, to be honest. So it was a bit of a surprise to me. So now I'll just update the spreadsheet and just see how much my income projection has gone up this week. So we can see there that I've just modified the dividends with the increase that I've seen this week. So my income projected for the year has gone up by, if we just highlight these two cells, that one and that one, is gone up by £10.73. We're now actually projected 12,780, and that, as always, that's with my pessimistic overlay of these ones. So that's 12,780. I haven't updated this number for a couple of weeks, so this actually includes some increases that happened last week. 12,780. We've gone from 3.93% increase versus last year to a 4.15% increase compared to last year. So it's just nice to see that number hopefully will just continually just inch up as the year goes by. This is my solid income I can rely on. This is my inflated income because some of them are going to get cut. Yeah, so if the dividends do come through, we've gone 7.32% up to 7.41, not much. So Henderson Far East Income, they had their annual results. Not that much to say. Well, I don't know. It's just a bit of a moan, really. I mean, the NAV and the share price did 11%. Well, sorry, 12% and 16.6% respectively, which isn't bad. But as we know, that this one, I mean, it's done appallingly. Here's the 5-year chart. It's down 38%. My holding is down 30%. I mean, I've had a fair amount of dividends there as well over the years. If we look at the dividends I've received from it, they're pretty beefy at £7,500 over the years. Actually, is that the first year? Oh no, there's more. So yeah, 2015 I first purchased. So yeah, £7,500. So overall, I have made money from it overall because I've got £7,500 in dividends and 3,700 odd in capital loss. So if this one can make a comeback and get back to a yield where you can think to yourself, this isn't a yield trap. At the moment, that has just got yield value trap, yield trap, whatever you want to call it, written all over it, hasn't it? At 10.9%. But man, it would be the recovery of all recoveries if it could get back on track and then eventually get good dividend growth. But yeah, one of my worst holdings this. And you know the strangest thing is that's how bad. I mean, if you go to the max, it's pretty bad, but the 5-year results looks terrible. But the strange thing is this one doesn't even trade on a discount to NAV. It's still at a premium of 2.64%. It's crazy. I don't understand how it's managed that. I mean, I think that's why it's managed it. People are seduced by that high number. So in effect, this has been paying out of capital because what they've been doing is they've done like covered calls. I've heard them also talk about deciding to buy a share just before its ex-dividend date to try and get dividend cover. And it's just like, I feel like they're doing things which like the most amateurish newcomer to investing would go on the forum and say, oh, well, look at this, I've got this amazing plan. Let's buy just before the ex-dividend date and then sell after it. And then everyone in the forums has to tell them, no, you're an idiot. The market knows this. And the market will put the share price down on the ex-dividend date by the amount of the dividend, all other things being equal. And then it talks about the revenue. Dividend income from companies held in the portfolio rose by 23%. And the total income increased by 29%. And it says it's now enabled them to replenish the revenue reserves. So I'm editing the video, as you can see there. I just wanted to add, I found the AGM from last year, and this is the chart. The manager had this ready because he knew the question was going to be asked in the Q&A section at the end. But it shows how they got to last year's full dividend. I think at the end of the year, the yield was 11.1% based on the current price. But they've told us here that last year, the yield at the beginning of the year was 5% of their portfolio. And then the dividend increases that happened naturally added 0.5%. But then they add 0.8% with option premium income. But what that does is it does increase your income, but it caps your capital gains. And this is part of the problem. This is part of why the share price, the capital value has gone down, yet the dividend has just become massive as a yield anyway. It hasn't actually grown that much, but the yield has grown because the share price has gone down. But yeah, so 0.8 of it is option premium. Remember, this is 0.8 out of 11.1. It's not 0.8%. It's 0.8 divided by 11.1. And then there was a one-off dividend from a shipping company, so you can't rely on that every year. And then here, look, income from new ideas added to the portfolio, which are replacing names that are already ex-dividend. And then the one next to it, selectively adding existing high-income portfolio holdings ahead of dividend dates. So look at that, 1.7 plus 0.8 is all based on just choosing the date you exit and enter companies. That is, again, that limits your capital, because when it goes ex-dividend, the price goes down. And then obviously last year they had to go into the revenue reserves, but they haven't had to do that this year. But yeah, I just wonder, I mean, I hope that, to be honest, this guy is the new manager. He was previously a co-manager, but not for that long. It's the guy that left last year who got us into this trouble. So I'm hoping, I mean, he did say something really stupid here. Let me hear it again.
Is given that we are a high yield income fund,
here it comes,
is that we're trying to be a little bit smart in terms of when we enter names and exit names. So for example, recently we have bought a couple of Korean names, but rather than sell to existing Korean names and just buy the new, we let those run until we got the dividend, and then we started to reposition into the new names.
And he started that little segment saying, we've been a bit clever. It's not clever. Everybody knows the price goes down, you're eating away at your capital. But I mean, I'm sure he probably understands that. He's not an idiot, obviously. He probably understands that, but he's got to put the front on that this dividend will keep getting covered and it won't just end up having to be cut. That's what I hope. I hope he isn't so dumb to think that that's being smart, because it's not being smart. It's just robbing your capital to pay your dividend. A little bit later in the Q&A, the chairman mentions or answers a question and says that in the long term, they hope that the dividend growth of the actual portfolio will mean that eventually, well, he didn't say these words, but basically he hopes that those first two bars on that chart will become more and more of a proportion as the underlying dividend of the companies grows faster than the dividend of the investment trust itself. So who knows? It'll be interesting to see if they put that chart in this year's AGM and see how it's improved. I get a feeling they might not do it though, because it got quite a bit of backlash from the audience pointing out the stupidity of the things I pointed out today. And also Scottish Mortgage had their half-year results. They announced a unchanged dividend from this time last year, so that hasn't affected my income expectations. I did read it, but you know, they're just talking about stuff that, you know, they're just talking up their book, as these managers always do. They talk about some problems Norfolk did badly. That's close to like being a zero, but I mean, they've always said that some of their stuff is going to go to zero. But that's a maximum of 100% loss, whereas the gainers can make thousands of percentage gains. So it's to be expected. Norfolk was at one point about 4% of the portfolio though, so that's quite a disappointment. But I mean, that is just the nature of this beast though, because even though they've had 4% of their portfolio probably go down to, well, let's have a look. So it might only be in the PDF file that accompanies this list. Yeah, there's no Norfolk there. If we go to full portfolio value though, and this is normally a month before compared to this list. Oh, it's gone. If we search for North, see we're down to zero there. Oh yeah, it's all in different amounts. Yeah, so it's gone to 0.2% of the portfolio. It's on the brink of administration, I think. So that's like a 4% loss from its peak in the portfolio. But I mean, the share price of SMT itself over that time hasn't been doing badly. It's just the nature of this So if you go to the year, it's 30% up over the year. 5 years is bad, but it's had that big peak. But yes, since here it's been going up quite well. Some of them might go to zero. Some of them might go to 1,000% up. I can't remember there was a. Yeah, it's just the usual stuff, really. They emphasise that they're valuing their private companies quite often compared to most, just because some people have worries about a lag in the valuation of private companies compared to the listed ones that are in the portfolios. Yeah, there's not much to say on that one, really. Just a flat dividend from the year before. Last thing that happened this week was I completed my budget year. So I now know exactly how much I spent for the 12 months. So if you remember this spreadsheet where I did my yearly performance on my portfolio, I estimated 10,900 quid for my spending this year, because I tracked my spending to the 3rd of November. It's just because it's just the random date where I happened to start travelling. I moved into my caravan on the 3rd of November, so that's when I started tracking my spending in a different way to how I had previously, because it was a whole new dynamic of spending, isn't it? It's a whole new thing. That's why the two dates don't align. So let's have a look, shall we? So the last month ended up being 751 quid, making the total 10,829 and 2 pence. So we can update that. So my estimate was pretty close. It's a decimal, because when I type in my cost per day of my accommodation, I just do it day to day. So I put in the total amount for however long I've booked for, and then I divide by the number of days. So that's why there's decimals in my spending for the year. So I thought I might as well just give you a little insight as to exactly where the money goes that I spend. I've got it broken down here. This is the year that's just passed. So that's to November. That's to November the 3rd. So when it says October, that means from October the 4th to November the 3rd. And so that means that my accommodation was 407 quid. My day-to-day spending, general spends, was basically that's mostly just food. I can now update this from green to black, because green was my estimate previously. So now it's the actual numbers, so I can put it as black. Column there for the average per month for the year. So yeah, monthly, just my general spending averages about 262 for this year. A lot of that is, there's February there. My mother, bless her, she still gives us 50 quid each year for our birthdays, and I keep saying, Mum, I don't need the bloody money. But she still wants to give it us. If she wanted to keep giving it us, she'd inflation adjust it, wouldn't she? But I don't think she understands the concept of inflation. Anyway, so I still get that, and she gives it us in cash in a card, and she always just leaves it somewhere. She'll never give it to me. She always hides it like in my bag or something when she sees me. The one time a year she sees me. Anyway, so that's why that month there is mega low, because she gives me my birthday and my Christmas 50 quid, so that's 100 quid is the cash she gave me. So anyway, so some of this is a little bit disingenuous, because actually it's 100 quid more in total. Yeah, and then obviously it fluctuates depending on where I am. I think these are the months where, those are the months where I was in England. So if you, I was about to say I spent more in England, but it doesn't actually seem like I did it? Because 250 and 329 isn't really that much different to the average, is it? Medical, what did I spend? What happened in December? Oh yeah, I had a tooth removed, didn't I? I remember I was in Vietnam and my tooth needed removing. I remember now. I've still got a hole. So that at some point I might get a, what do they call it, an implant, I'm not sure. And then in May I got a filling done in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Still don't know how to pronounce Herzegovina. I got a load more dental stuff done because it's impossible to get done when I'm at home. I'm only at home for a couple of months, so getting anything booked in at a dentist, I got like a load of dental work done that wasn't really needed, but I felt good after it, like I'd cared for myself a bit. Yeah, obviously it's nice to see all these things that were there from my time in the caravan are pretty much zero now, and I've changed them to be something different while I'm travelling on foot. As you can see there, that was an unexpected spend I've mentioned before. I poured a load of water over my old laptop, so I had to purchase a new one when I was in Serbia. I think it was Belgrade. Yeah, Belgrade I was in. And it's different buying laptops abroad. Well, in Serbia anyway, they all come without any windows on them. So you have to either know how to do it yourself, which I didn't. I tried but failed, and so I ended up just spending about 20 quid getting a shop to install Windows on this laptop for me, which isn't bad. And it's a pretty good laptop actually. 632 quid's a pretty good price. I'm not sure how much this laptop would have been in England. I've no idea, but it's pretty good for the price. My previous one was about 800 odd, I think. Yeah, obviously breakdown cover doesn't exist anymore, and then I pay my sister council tax. I don't even know if I need to do this, to be honest. I'm not sure I need to be on the electoral roll somewhere, but I wanted to be on the electoral roll where my sister is because that is the area I spent a lot of my life living in. But because she lives on her own, that adds 25. That adds to her council tax bill. So I pay the 25% of her council tax bill that I'm causing by officially quote unquote living there. Yeah, and the phone and data is just a case of getting a local SIM in each country. And then when I was in England, I spent 2 weeks in a Haven static caravan. So they don't come with Wi-Fi. So I got I think it was an 80 gigabyte SIM deal with giffgaff. So that's why it goes up for that month. And then the month before was giffgaff again while I was in an Airbnb that had Wi-Fi. It tends to be, if I'm in Europe, Airbnb tends to be the best thing. When I was in Thailand, sometimes an Airbnb, sometimes a an Agoda, just a hotel from Agoda. And in Vietnam, I used Agoda all the time in Vietnam. That seemed to be the best deals. So that's that accommodation cost there. Yeah, so that's I can't think anything else that might. Yeah, what I like about it, it's amazing how simple your costs are when you don't have your own home. This is very simple. There's no bills, there's no electric bill, there's no water bill. It's all just in the moment. So I think I've got quite a lot, apart from medical things going wrong, I've got quite a lot of visibility on what my costs could be if I choose to make them that way. I can just go to a country where I'll spend less. If I wanted to spend more, I could go to mainland, further north in Europe and spend a hell of a lot more. Probably couldn't afford to Airbnb my way around those places.
Where are they going? Are they trying to land somewhere?
Made a little plan for next year's spending as well. So, well, this year. It started 5 days ago. I've made a little plan here, and I'm trying to get myself to spend more money. So what I've done is I've budgeted more for my accommodation. So the average here is 455. With obviously we have peaks when I go back to England. I think it was those 3 months perhaps, or I can't remember exactly the dates I was in England. Or it must have been February because that's a really high number, and it must have been March. And I think I left a few days into April. But yeah, so what I've got here is a much higher average for my accommodation. I think, yeah, 526 compared to 455. So I'm trying to improve my standard of living. I'm kind of targeting a higher spend. So I've got here already booked time in England just to kind of keep my residency in. I like to go home anyway just to get the familiar foods and stuff. But I've booked those haven places. I've got 2 months in those haven places over that period. And by booking I think it was 8 months in advance I booked that. But by booking that far in advance, you get pretty good deals. And it's the time of the year when it's cheaper as well, because it's right at the beginning of the season. I think if you get them right at the end of the season as well, you can get pretty good prices. But otherwise, the only thing that's affordable is a room in a shared house. And I did do that. I've done that a few times, but I feel so much more comfortable on my own. Because I'm pretty damn shy and awkward socially. So my plan is I'm already in the Balkans at the moment. So this is North Macedonia. I'm probably going to go to Albania for these 3 months, and then in early March, I'll be going to England, and then mid-May I'll be probably going to. I've got Kuala Lumpur earmarked, but I haven't got the flight booked yet. Basically, I'm going to go to Asia again. I much prefer the Balkans, to be honest, cost-wise and climate-wise. Much prefer it, but I'm going to give Asia another go. And I think I might go to Kuala Lumpur, although I might end up going back to Thailand again, just because it's easier. I'm kind of familiar. And I definitely like the food there, although I hate the chocolate. And then I'm thinking the Philippines, possibly, after a few months in Malaysia. Because I think in Malaysia it's just a 3-month stay you're allowed without even getting a visa. I'll have to look into that more, though. This is the thing, the travel to Asia. It's good to have it span over 2 years, over 2 of my accounting years, because obviously that bumps up my travel costs. In that month when I do the move from Europe to Asia, it's a big flight cost in the middle there. So it's good that I can have a stint in Asia and then put the flight away from Asia into next year's. So I can kind of budget around a big costly flight like that. And I'm hoping that even though I've budgeted this amount for my spending, I'm hoping that might go down. It did go down when I was in Vietnam and Thailand, the spending, because I've accounted for £10 a day of spending on general food and stuff. But because the thing is, the flights really mean that going to the Balkans is kind of cheaper, and I really like it here. I've really loved Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, North Macedonia. They're the 3 places I've been in the past 6 months. It's probably about 8 months now. Yeah, I've really loved it. The climate's nice. I feel comfortable here. It's not too busy. I found Vietnam quite busy. Thailand was a bit better depending on where I was. Anyway, that's irrelevant. That isn't finance stuff, is it? That's life stuff, which this channel is not supposed to be about. I budgeted for a new phone. My phone's 3 years old in February, and the power button is already messing up. I can't use a fingerprint scanner on it anymore, so I feel like it's going to break at some point. I really like it though. It's annoying. If it wasn't for the power button going wrong, I wouldn't even bother replacing it, but I feel like I should while I'm in England. I can choose the right one and replace it. I'm also thinking about getting in a phone that has an eSIM functionality on it. This is one of the ways I'm thinking I might be able to tell myself to spend more, because I've told you before I struggle to spend, and I'm thinking that might be one of the ways I can spend more and get some value from it. Because at the moment I'm actually shopping around. I'm getting to the country. The first day or two I won't have a local SIM card, and I'll actually shop around for a tourist SIM in the country, and these are the kind of amounts I've ended up paying. These two are in Vietnam, £2 for the month, £2 for the month, £4.50 in Thailand. I was only there for 1 month at the end there, and then in England I've used my own gift gaff one, and then it's pretty cheap. But I could get a global eSIM, and in a lot of the countries I go to, I could just use that, and then I'd have everything sorted. I wouldn't have to go into the shop and possibly have language problems. And so it would probably improve my life to get one of these global eSIMs, and you can buy them 12 months in advance, and it would probably cover 8 months of the 12 months I have that. It would cover it, and I've calculated it would cost about £7 a month. So that would be more than I've spent in the past. So who knows, one day I might treat myself to one of those global SIMs and see if that improves my life. And the other cost I've got next year, I bought a 2-year VPN at the beginning of my travels because obviously I'm always using Wi-Fi that's shared with different people. So if I do manage to stay on budget next year or this year that I'm currently in, I should hopefully be able to add 2,543 to my portfolio, or just to my cash levels. Who knows? That's the real comforting thing. If interest rates went down to zero, the LISA bonus was banned, and the SIP bonus was banned for me, I would still have an excess of 405 quid on this spending plan for the next year. So that's kind of really comforting to me to have. Even in one of the very worst case scenarios, I'm still covered. This is what I do each month. I collate all of the spending I've done. Yeah, so for that general spending column, I use this app here, Travel, what's it called? And then each time I spend something, I get out of the shop, I click plus, I go to general, I add 5,000, that's a bit much. I had some money to, as you can see there, it automatically translates it from Macedonian dinars here. I still don't know if you say dinners or dinars. I think it's dinars. And it knows the exchange rate, so it's translated it to £6.74. As I'm going along, it keeps a running total there. It says the daily average is £6.11, and I've got a budget of 10. So I'm ahead of budget for the first few days. And that kind of keeps me, actually, more than anything, it sometimes loosens me up a bit and I end up spending more. Like if at the end of the month I can see on this app, because I can change the view here to total versus budget. And if I'm on like the second or the third of the month, which are the last 2 days, and I see that I'm way below budget, I might treat myself. So if anything, I would probably say this helps me spend more, to be honest. But yeah, that's how I track my spending as I go within the month. All right, so I think that's it. I'll see you next week. Bye.